Is it working now? Awesome. It's working. Ladies and gentlemen, can you hear me? Oh yeah, it's a little loud. Ron, is that too loud? Ron, is that too loud? Can you hear me? Yes? It's not too loud? I'm good? Oh, it's got to be like louder? You can hear me though? Because I can yell. I mean, I have no problem with that. Well, I mean, some people could attest to that. Awesome. Are we good here? Pat, we're good finally? I'm not supposed to be live yet. I was in the bathroom earlier trying this mic and that just didn't work. But here we go. Hey, how many of you here have never been to Gilead before? I see a bunch of new faces, which is just like amazing. Keep your hands up, like unless you have a frozen shoulder. If you've never been to Gilead, way up, like unless you have a frozen shoulder. That's a lot of people. Ron's first time too? Okay, that's amazing. I just want to tell you a little bit about if you've never been to Gilead. Welcome. Welcome, welcome. So in case you don't know, at Gilead Healing Center, we're just, sometimes people ask me, Dr. Jean-Guy, is Gilead a church? Gilead is not a church. It's a healing center, in case you did not know. I mean, I try to make this pretty obvious. Gilead Healing Center. And Gilead Healing Center has been around for 20 years. We're going to celebrate our 20th anniversary this fall. And when it was first built back in 2004, right? The purpose of Gilead Healing Center was to give a second chance to people that, had been different places and did not get any answer. They could come to this place and have the ability to see, when people use the term spirit, soul, and body, what does that mean? And what does that look like practically? So there's many people that use those terms, but yet practically not many people really address it. So here in this place, under this roof, right, for the past 20 years, that's truly what's happening. To help people with their spirit, soul, and body healing and having a healing journey into those areas. So here you have it. Welcome. I've been the clinic director now since June of 2017, and it's been just an amazing ride. And we, right out of the gate in June of 2017, we started to do this thing here called the Dinner with the Doc. This is called the Dinner with the Doc. I'm the doctor, and you're having dinner. Hopefully you're hungry, but we're only going to feed you at the end. You got to pay attention first. Okay. If you were to have a nail in your tire and you're about to drive cross country, when would you like to know about it? That's the obvious. It's like right now. I'd like to know right now. If somebody or a company was to be drawing money out of your bank account, unbeknown to you on a weekly basis or monthly basis, when would you like to know? Right? Some of you are like, yesterday, as soon as possible. And I agree with you. But my last question to you is, if something or someone was to be taking a little bit out of your health, right, for 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, taking away from your health, from you being the best version of you can be, when would you like to know and find out about it? And that's the same thing for me. I like to know, like, right now. Tell me right now. So here what's going to happen is in the next, like, before I feed you, which is probably the most important part, but I want to share with you a few things, right? In the next 30 minutes or so, I want you will discover the most effective, the most natural, the most powerful way to be healthy and to stay healthy while minimizing the deadly effect of chronic illnesses like heart disease or cancer or diabetes. And then to also give you the opportunity to do something about it, which is probably the most important part. How many of you here tonight have ever read a great book with great information? You intended to do something with what was in the book, but yet you haven't done that yet. How many of you? By a show of hands. Well, very good. I'm not the only one. Thank you. Thank you for being honest. Those of you that didn't raise your hand, probably happened to you. We just forgot. That's okay. Some of you here tonight, maybe you've been here before, maybe you've heard me, or maybe you're like, I heard that before, and I want you to be asking yourself, I want you to say, hey, whatever I'm hearing right now, how am I applying this into my life as it relates to my health? Would that be fair? I've been training my entire life. I'm going to be 52 years old in just a month from now or so, 2 months. And usually when you go to the gym, there's two kinds of people that shows up there. The first kind is they usually go, I like to call it the corporate wellness membership. You go into the locker room, you read the paper, then you go into the steam room, maybe in the sauna for a minute, then you take a shower and you go to work. Right? It's called the corporate wellness membership. And then the other group, they actually put their shorts on, then they're going to go work out. They're going to do that for the next 90 days. Who do you think is going to get the greatest physical transformation in the next 90 days, A or B? Are we like in agreement here tonight that you guys are going to be all the B people? Because we are going not just for information, but we're going for transformation. Is that fair? Is that fair? Okay, that sounds good. I grew up into a family of farmers. Both of my parents were farmers. I was born and raised in Montreal, Canada, which is about 630 miles east from here. My mom's parents were farmers. My father's parents were farmers. His brothers were farmers. And they all had hundreds of acres of farmland growing vegetables. When my mother married my father, she was 17 years old at the time. And when she married my dad, he was 22 years old. And when they married my mom, unbeknown to her, she did not know that my father had a problem with his blood sugar. So shortly after they married, my mom found my dad on the ground. She thought he was dead. She rushed him to the hospital. And by the time they got to the hospital, my father was in a deep coma. And she did not know if he would make it out of there. But 48 hours later, by God's grace, my father came out of the hospital. And they told him that he was a diabetic, and for the rest of his life, he's going to have to give himself a shot of insulin every morning. So at the age of 22 years old, my father started to do that every morning, shot of insulin. When his blood sugar started dropping down in the afternoon, he would start eating cake, cookies, candies, and ice cream just so he wouldn't pass out. My dad was also a smoker. He smoked 4 packs a day. And if you've never smoked and you don't know what that means, basically, to wake up in the morning, he had a cigarette in his mouth. And then he'd be smoking all day until he hit the pillow at night. And he did that every day from age 22 until he was 30 years old. And by the time he was 30 years old, my father was diagnosed with a condition called peripheral neuropathy. And if you don't know what that is, from his knees down, my dad could not feel anything. You could literally take a knife and just jab him in his legs. He did not even know that he was bleeding. In less than 5 years, my dad was 3/4 blind. And the reason why I remember this clearly is because in Montreal, the sun comes up in the summer at 4:30 a.m. in the morning, which is the dream of every farmer. And he would come into the bedroom and he would say, son, it's time to get up. And I was a little boy at the time, and I'm like, hey, you know what? It's 4:30, I'm sleeping. And he would be like, listen, you're going to be driving the tractor. I'm going to tell you where to go. And I'm going to stand right next to you because I can't see. And in less than 12 months, at the age of 36, my father was completely blind. And at that moment, what happened is he lost 40 pounds really quickly because he was depressed and he couldn't work anymore. And then he was just pretty much skin and bone. And because his blood sugar was not managed properly, then he ended up being housebound. And what that meant is he was in bed about 20 hours a day. And they would be moving from one side to the other and one side to the other, and he started to develop bed sores. And when it first started, it was about the size of a quarter. And then in less than 6 months, the quarter was about 6 inches around. You could literally see every single layer of the flesh all the way down to the bone. And what happened is at that time, back in the days, the doctor would come in doing house call, and he would walk right up on the main floor, and he would go right into the bedroom. By the time he got into the bedroom, all us 5 kids will gather around the bed. And then they would take the piece of tape off and the gauze. And as the gauze was coming off of his skin, it was all yellow and it was all nasty and infected. And then the doctor would clean that up, would put some new ointment, then another piece of gauze, another piece of tape until the next visit on the following week. And this happened, right? Every single week, this would happen. By the time my father turned to be 40 years old, this was July 12, 1982. At the age of 40, as you can imagine, he was not doing a whole lot. He would come into the living room a couple hours a week, a couple hours a day. Somebody would be spoon feeding him because he couldn't take care of himself. And then he would go right back into bed. And then just a few months later, by the time September rolled around, right, he wasn't doing well one day. He knew it. My mother knew it. And they made an agreement that at that time she didn't know what to do with him, so they just called the ambulance. And when they called the ambulance, the two paramedics comes in. They go right up the stairs. They go on the main floor. They go right into the bedroom. And by the time they got into the bedroom, they assessed him. And then they looked at my mother and they're like, listen, we need to take him in. And my mom already knew that. They already had made the agreement. They already knew what would happen. So they load him up on the stretcher. They roll him back out of the bedroom. They roll him out right in front of us 5 kids. And then my mother was right there in the corner, and she was right there in the corner. And I just looked at my mom and I said, where are they taking Dad? And then she did not answer. And then I asked a question again. I said, where are they taking him? And at that moment in time, as a little boy there, I was 9 years old at the time, I quickly realized that being a good provider was not the most important thing. You see, I've been in this town now for 25 years, and I've been taking care of thousands of people. And what I realize is when people lose their health, they don't know how to get it back. And when they have their health, they don't know how to keep it. I'm going to say this again because this is important. When people lose their health, they don't know how to get it back. And when they have their health, they don't know how to keep it. So if I was to say to you tonight, and I want you to remember that you're the B people, not the A one, you're not going to just sit there and do nothing. If I ask you the question tonight and say, do you think that we live in a healthy country? What would you say? Interesting. Even if people don't know nothing about health, right? They already know that. They're like, no. And why do you think that is? Sure. Sure. The answer is yes and more yes. Right? I always tell people, I'm like, listen, out of 40 industrialized countries, we're ranked number 37. And what that means is we have the best doctor, that we have the best nurse, the best technology, the science, we have everything, but yet our health, right, is poor. 75% of the country as we speak right now is considered to be overweight. Over 35% is considered to be, right, obese. 25% of women after the age of 40 years old going to be taking some kind of antidepressant. There's only one person that makes it to the age of 60 years old without taking a prescription medication. I'm going to say this here one more time. There's only one person that will make it to the age of 60 years old without taking a prescription medication. And my question to you tonight is I want you to listen to me here real closely because this is important. Because this will define, as we go on tonight, every other question that you will have or that I will be asking you. If I say to you, do you think a person is healthier when they take more drugs, or are they healthier when they take less? A or B? Obviously, right? Obviously, the average person, by the time they get to the age of 60 years old, will take anywhere between 5 to 8 prescription medication. That's the average. Some people, they're not average. They just want to break a record. So when they come in, they give me this page, 8.5 by 11. It's full. That's not average. And it's not uncommon. So the first question was, do you think that we live in a healthy country? The answer is no. You know that. I know that. I can see that. You can see that. The next question is, why do you think that is? That's an important question. Why do you think that is? In my professional opinion, there's 2 main reasons. Number one is people don't want to take responsibility for their health. That's important. When I do ask people, who's responsible for your health, what do most people say? They're like, I do. Once in a while, people are like, well, that's you, Dr. Jean-Guy. I'm like, well, I can help you out, right? But that's not me. Ultimately, each and every one of us, we are responsible for our health. However, in one hand, we're like, hey, I'm responsible for my health. But on the other hand, When I have symptoms, for instance, I have high blood pressure, I go see the doctor. The next thing that's going to happen is we know what's going to happen. 95% of the time, the doctor is going to open up the toolbox and he's going to give you what for your blood pressure? Medicine, right? And if the medicine brings your blood pressure down to 120/80, would declare you what? They say, hey, you know what? You're doing great because those numbers look good. But is the problem still there, though? Thank you. Right? The problem is still there. It's like me telling you tonight that people have headaches because they don't have enough aspirin in their brain. Is that it? Do people have acid reflux because they don't have enough Tums in their belly? Yes or no? Okay, very good. We are in agreement on one more thing. We're just moving along. You guys are doing well. Right? So I want to be taking responsibility for our health. And if we don't do that, if you're expecting the doctor to do it for you, it's not going to work. Does that make sense? Number two is people having the right information. That's really important. I hate to even say the word, but I just, it's so much fun, right? 2020, this thing called COVID. Were people a little confused about the information? I would say lots of confusion, yes. So if you were to have, let's just pretend that if you were to have a brand new map of Michigan, it's brand new, just came out of the printer today, and you're going to New York City and you're trying to find your way around, is it going to work well for you? But the map is brand new though, right? It's the right information from Michigan, but if you're in the middle of New York City, it's not going to help you much, is it? So having the right information is important. Having the right information and asking the right question is everything. Can you say everything? Joy even said it. She's like, Dr. Jean-Guy, everything. You got to have the right information because from this point on, if you don't have the right information, you don't ask the right question, you're never going to be able to get to where you want to be. How many of you here, by a show of hands, the next 12 months, you'd like to be healthier than you are now? How many of you? Right? A few of you, you're just like, I'm just like Superman. I don't need to be healthier. But for some reason, I've never had anybody saying, you know what? I really want to be sicker. People don't say that. They're like, well, of course I want to be healthier. I'm like, okay. But first, you have to know and understand, what does that mean to be healthy, though? Can we agree on that? Is a person healthier when they take more drugs or less drug? Less drug, thank you. So I want to make sure that we're just like building the foundation here together. Usually people will fit in three different paradigms. I want to explain to you this thing. It's called the paradigm of health. A paradigm means that, how do you define health? What does health means to you? And based on how you define health, every decision that you will make from this point on, it will be based on that. I'll give you an example later, and if I forget, you'll remind me, but there's three different paradigms that people operate under, and you will find yourself in one of those three tonight. Paradigm number one. Paradigm number what? Number one. Right, in this lane right here, in the paradigm number one of health, is people have symptoms. When they have symptoms, they go to the doctor and they're expecting the doctor to fix it. And how we're going to fix it is either one or two things, because that's what we do today in medicine. It's either we're going to give you a pill for it. Once we make a diagnosis, right, we have to make a diagnosis. And once we have a diagnosis, then we have a what for it. We have a pill. You're happy, we got a pill for that. You're sad, you got a pill for that. You can't poop, we got a pill for that. You poop too much, we got a pill for that. Right? Your blood pressure is high, we got a pill for that. Your cholesterol is high, we got a pill for that. Understood? If we have a symptom, we can make a diagnosis, we can give you a pill for it. And then the assumption is once we get the symptoms to go away, then we declare you what? You say, you know what, you're doing great. We're managing your disease. We're managing your symptom. But my question to you tonight is, you want somebody that's going to manage your symptoms, somebody that's going to keep you healthy? Now, don't get me wrong here, just to make this clear, because some of you, you're just wiggly in your seat right now. You're like, yeah, but Dr. Jean-Guy, this pill that he gave me there just saved my life. And I'm like, hey, I agree with you. I'm not in disagreement. If your blood pressure is 300/100, maybe you need to do something temporarily. Yes, would you agree? But would you also agree that there's something that is causing the problem? Yes? Okay. So paradigm of health number one is like, hey, listen, I've got symptoms, and then one or two things going to happen. I'm going to take a pill for it to try to restore your numbers, right? Or, your gallbladder, you don't need that. We'll take that out, right? You have too many organs. Those are just spare parts. We take those out. It's not a big deal. Do you follow me? Paradigm number one. Paradigm number two is right here. There's some people here, there's probably some of you here tonight, you're like, Dr. Jean-Guy, I don't do that. What I do is if I don't feel good, I'm going to take something that is natural. What does that mean? Well, you have a cold, you go to the health food store, and you're going to be asking the lady there that's been there for a few years, say, hey, do you have something that is natural for my cold? Do you have some kind of herbal, some kind of vitamin, some kind of oil that's going to make me feel better? Or you have like 30 pounds overweight, you lose the weight, you go on vacation, put your Speedo on, you look good, and then when you come back from vacation, you just go back to do what you were doing before. Yes? Or even better, because I'm a chiropractor, I got to give you a chiropractic joke because we crack people up. That's what we do. Yes? In case you did not know. Ha ha. Maybe just a few times in 25 years, people come in and say, Dr. Jean-Guy, you know what? My last chiropractor was just amazing. I'm like, well, why is that? Well, once upon a time, like 25 years ago or 30 years ago, my neck was in real bad shape, and I just went in and you just cracked me this one time, and I've never needed an adjustment since. I know you guys never thought of that, but it only happened a handful of times. So you see what happened is when you're in this field right here. Now listen up, because this is really important. Because people that are here, they believe and they truly think in their heart to heart that they're doing the best thing they can for their health because they don't take drugs. Taking something natural doesn't mean you're healthy. Taking your essential oil or taking your vitamins doesn't mean you're healthy because you have a cold and then you just put it away. Or like losing weight and then just going back doing what you were doing before. It's not going to, right? When you do something like if a person truly wanted to be healthy, right? How long would you brush your teeth for? How long? Forever. Thank you. Right? I want you to think of that for a minute. If I ask any one of you here tonight, innately, even if you know nothing about exercise, how long should you exercise for? Thank you. Should you just get in shape and then you're like, hey, look at my muscle, right? I can go to the gun show now. I mean, can you see that? Right? I mean, I'm ready. I don't need exercise anymore. Do you see how it just like, you're sitting there, you're like, that makes no sense. People don't exercise because they have, here we go, I have big muscles, they look good, and they're just going to quit. Why would you do that? Why would you not want to go to the gun show until you're 100 years old? Right? Would that be different? So you have paradigm of health number one is like you just go see a doctor and, you just let him take charge of your health. He's going to take over to manage your numbers on your physical exam, make a diagnosis, giving you a pill. And then when things break down enough, then we're going to just cut the parts off. Or you can be here and say, hey, I don't take drugs. I'm going to do things natural. So when I don't feel good or I don't do well, then I'm going to go see my naturopath or my nutritionist. I'll go see the trainer, and then I'm going to feel better. And then after that, I'm just done. Or you can be in this last narrow path right here, which is really what health is. And that part is really important. I'm not going to tell you anything that you don't already know. But knowing it and doing it is different. Remember the A and the B people there at the gym? That's different. When you read the paper for an hour and you just go take a shower and go to work, that's different than going to work out. That's much different. The corporate wellness membership is kind of easy. It feels good because you don't have to do a whole lot. But the outcome is the same, though. It's not good. So in paradigm of health number one is, if we want to keep this simple tonight, is you might want to write this down if you really want to remember, is you have to think well, you have to move well, and then you got to eat well. That's pretty simple, isn't it? You got to think well, you got to move well, and then you got to eat well. So there's three things that have an impact on your body, and there's one thing that controls it. There's three things that have an impact on your body, and there's one that controls it. So you got to think well. What does that mean? So today in science, we don't have time for that because, you're not going to eat, and I know you're hungry, and that's what you came for. You're just like, I just want the food, Dr. Jean-Guy. Okay, so I'm going to go real fast through this, but let's talk about thinking well for a minute. Today, in the world of mental health and positive thinking and all that, we know that you can create with your thoughts, you can create disease. It's been proven, it's been documented. But you can also create health. right? Your body can heal from your thoughts, which is important. So that's why I tell people, I'm like, you should be around people that you can love and they can love you back and you can feel safe around them and they can feel safe around you. You can read a good book. If you're around people that are just raining on your parade every day, that's probably not the best people to be around, even if they're your family members. Sometimes people are like, really, Dr. Jean-Guy? You mean my sister? It just means that some people you might do better when you're keeping your distance. You follow me? So you got to think well. This is so powerful. What you think about, talk about, brings about. Can you say that one more time? What you think about, talk about, brings about. What you think about, talks about, brings about. That's important. So you got to think well, then you got to move well. Let's talk about moving well for a minute. Ready? So moving well, this is today in the United States of America, we have a little problems with that. Meaning that people sit on the couch, they move their eyes, they think they're exercising. Yes? People go on this walk for 15 minutes. They're like, Dr. Jean-Guy, I did so good today. And I want you to know, right, that this idea of this 10,000 step, many of those things in this country, they lower things down so we can feel good. 10,000 step is like the bare minimum. Did you know, now listen to me here, this is really important. Did you know that there's a Nobel Prize winner back in the 80s that says that, 90% of your brain nutrition has to do with proper motion of your joints. I'm going to say this again because this is so important. 90% of your brain nutrition has to do with proper function of your joints. Your joints. 90% of your brain nutrition has to do with proper motion of your joints. How many of you here, as they're getting older, I know you're all young, but how many of you here, as you're getting older, you want to keep your brain? How many of you? I would dare to say that most people today, they're a little concerned about brain health. Because there's a lot of people around that have neurodegenerative disease, and that's pretty scary, from early dementia to Alzheimer, and just name it. So you want to keep your brain, you have to do what? You have to move well. 90% of your brain nutrition has to do with proper motion of your joints. Motion is lotion. You might want to write this down. Motion is lotion. Motion is lotion. You got to move. That's really important. Likely, whatever you're doing right now, you need to move, you need to do more of it. So you got to think well, you got to move well, and then you got to eat well. So let's talk about that here for a moment. For most people, you spend your life following the SAD diet. The SAD diet stands for the Standard American Diet. You might want to write this down, SAD. Just like Dr. Jean-Guy talked about the SAD diet. What is the SAD diet? It's called the Standard American Diet. The food pyramid. So you should have everything that is like sugar-free, fat-free. You should have a lot of grain, eat a lot of cake, cookies, candies, ice cream, bread, rice, and pasta. But that's okay. You can do that with moderation. That's not a problem. So when you're on the Standard American Diet, then what happened is we have what we have today. What do we have today? Right? 75%, 80% of the country is considered to be overweight. And we have 562,000 people dying from heart disease every year. We have 700,000 people dying from cancer. We have millions of people that are diagnosed with diabetes every year. Right? Just think about that for a minute. Every year. The top causes of people dying in this country, it's not because of accident. It is because of chronic illnesses. So when people eat cake, cookies, candies, ice cream, bread, rice, and pasta, then what happens is your body will break down at the speed of light. Sugar-free, fat-free. Yes? That's what we were told. And that's what most people go for. So I want you to know that this is really, really important. I want you to think here, if we're just, I teach this class, it's called Eating God's Way. And I always like to tell people that I'm like, listen, your body is like a blueprint. Your genes and my genes and all of your genes here today, I want you to just pay attention here because this is important. Because this is like the truth versus lies. Ready? Your genes and my genes are the same. We have the same gene, the same blueprint. What does that mean? Some of you might be like, well, Dr. Jean-Guy, you just don't understand. In my family, heart disease just runs in my family. I'm like, listen, the only thing that runs in your family is silliness. Because if you have one generation after another, they do the exact same thing, the outcome's going to be the same. Heart disease is not a genetic disease. Cancer is not even a genetic disease. Did you know that? Right? People will be like, well, Dr. Jean-Guy, there's a hangover gene. Well, guess what? If you don't drink, you're not going to have a hangover. Did you know that they found like a breast cancer gene? Now, let me just listen to me for a minute. This is important. Do you understand that there's hundreds of thousands of women in this country right now as we speak, they have the breast cancer gene, but yet they don't have breast cancer? Why do you think that is? That's important. If you don't understand, right, you're just like, you're making decision every day based on the wrong paradigm. Because you're like, well, it runs in my family. So let's take, for instance, heart disease, right? If you go to the doctor when you're 35 years old and you don't have high blood pressure, but somebody had it in your family or somebody had cholesterol in your family. Now listen, what do you think the doctor is going to say? Well, we just want to prevent it. We're going to give you the blood pressure pill now and we'll give you the cholesterol pill now. Now, let's say that you show up when you're 40 and you have high blood pressure and high cholesterol. Well, we're going to give it to you, right? So you have no chance to win. If you don't have it, we'll give it to you. If you have it, we'll give it to you. If you had a stroke or heart attack, we'll give it to you anyway. You have no chance. You'll get it one way or the other. It's going to be prevention, right? I see people coming in every day. They have the cocktail. Do you know what the cocktail is? People have a cocktail. You have a heart attack, you have a stroke, you're going to get the cocktail. What's the cocktail? Everybody is going to take cholesterol-reducing medication. You're going to get the cocktail. You're going to get the blood pressure pill. You're going to get the kidney pill. Everybody's going to get it. That's a cocktail. So this being said, let's keep moving further. So you got to think well, you got to move well, and then you got to put some food in your body. We have the same blueprint, meaning we have the same gene. Does genetic disease happen? Do people have like trisomy 21, which is like, Down syndrome? Do people have that for real? The answer is yes. I want you to say yes. The answer is yes, right? 100% of the time, one generation after the other, you're going to have, if you have trisomy 21, you're going to have Down syndrome. That's a true genetic disease, yes? Heart disease is not a genetic disease. It's a silliness disease. Understood? It has nothing to do with the gene. But if you repeat the same thing as what other people have done before you, then you get the same outcome. The same thing's going to happen. I want you to understand that. Why is that? There's a guy, it's called epigenetics. You might want to write this down, right? If you're like, well, is he telling the truth? You should probably question everything I say. Just write it down. It's called epigenetics. Look it up. And now I want you to look up this guy. His name is, I forgot his name. Maybe I need to go eat now. His name is Bruce Lipton. He's a cellular biologist. I want you to look this thing called epigenetics. And what they found is they're like, listen, your genes are just like a library of books. Your genes are like a library of books. And then you decide which one you're going to be pulling off the shelf depending on how you take care of yourself. Should I say this again? Your genes are just like a library of books. And now you're going to go in the library and you're going to decide which one you're going to be pulling off the shelf. So what that means is how you treat your body will determine which gene's going to be activated, and as a result, what kind of disease you're going to have depending on how bad you're treating your body. Do you follow me? But that's not a genetic disease. It's a disease because you don't take care of yourself. That's important. Why is that important? Because there's something you can do about it. You should be excited. Right? All of you should be excited. You're like, Dr. Jean-Guy, you're so serious. I'm like, I am. And the reason why I'm serious is because I want you to get that. It's so important. If you don't understand what health is and you don't ask the right questions for the rest of your life, you're going to be on the wrong track. You're going to be off. And then if you're off, then you have no chance. Zero, none. You're always going to be like thinking, you know what? Everybody had it in my family, so therefore I'm going to have it. And I don't want you to think that because that's not true. So you got to think well, move well, and then you got to eat well, standard American diet, got to stay away from that, yes? And then last but not least is you got to make sure that things are functioning properly. So what does that mean? Let's talk about this for a minute. In the medical dictionary, it says that health is when you have 100% function. What controls all the function in your body? Who can tell me? Thank you. That's the brain. When you're born, your brain is in charge of controlling 9 trillion cells. How many cells? 9 trillion cells. But when you're an adult, it's anywhere between 70 to 100 trillion cells. 70 to 100 trillion cells that your brain is in charge of controlling. So for your heart to beat, your lungs to breathe, your stomach to digest food, the information has to go from your brain through your spinal cord, out the nerves, to every organ, tissue, cells in your body. That's pretty amazing. If I were to send any one of you here tonight, say, I want you to run around Gilead 2 laps, you come back in, I take your blood pressure, what would happen to your blood pressure? Right? She's laughing. She's like, I don't know if I can do that. I'm like, it doesn't matter. Any one of you here, if you choose to, you can do it. Doesn't matter if you walk. If you push yourself a little bit, you come back and take your blood pressure, it's always going to go up. Because what happens is as soon as your brain senses the higher demand, it's going to happen automatically. Because that's the way God made you. Do you follow me? Your brain is in charge of controlling, coordinating 70 to 100 trillion cells at any given time from the time you're born until you die. That's pretty smart, would you say? Can you say so? It's pretty smart, yes? Now let's talk about symptoms for a minute. You got to go from 100% function all the way down to 60%, 100% to 60% before you start having symptoms and you can feel something. Now, if you're not going to remember that, you should probably write it down, right? You got to go from 100% function all the way down to 60% before you start feeling it. So that means that you need to have at least 40% of sickness, death, or disease in your body before you start, feeling it. So why in the world would anybody just wait until they have symptoms to start doing something about it for their health? Any one of you here want to sign up for that program? Fortunately, there's not many men here in this room tonight, but usually when there's many of them, men are just famous for this. They're like, Dr. Jean-Guy, if it's not broken, let's not fix it. It just doesn't hurt. And I'm like, okay. Is that possible? That something could be not working right even if you don't have any pain or even if you don't feel it. Is that possible? You know that. I know that. Yes? So that's important. If you truly want to be healthy, would you wait until you have symptoms to do something for your health? Yes or no? The answer is no, right? You do something now. You think well, you move well, you eat well, yes? And you want to make sure things are functioning properly. Your brain is in charge of controlling how many cells? 70 to 100 trillion cells. And that's the reason why the area we're going to look at is your spine. Your spine has 2 major functions. Number 1, it keeps you upright. That's your posture. Some of you here tonight, you're like, yeah, Dr. Jean-Guy, look, I look great. Right? You do this for about 10 seconds. You're like, okay, that's enough. Why do you think when God made your body to work, he put some hard bone around your brain and hard bone around your spinal cord? For what? For protection, right? For protection. Did you know that your spine and nervous system is the only system in your body that is completely encased by bone? Did you know that? The only system. There is no other system. When God made you, there is no other system in your body that is completely covered by bone and protected by it. And then what happened is when you have damage to your spine and nervous system, damage, what does that mean? Well, you sit at a chair for 8 hours at a time. You do that 5 days a week for the next 30 years. That's called microtrauma. Did you know that you could be in a car accident as low as 8.2 miles per hour, which is considered to be a fender bender, and you can have permanent damage in your spine? Did you know that when you're 12 months old, you were falling your butt 100 times a day trying to walk? Did you know that? You might not remember, but it still happened, yes? Did you know that, if you played sports at any given time in your life, and you do this for 10, 15 years at a time, and if you play contact sports, guess what happened to your spine and nervous system? Do you think that maybe you had a little bit of damage? Maybe. Did you know that according to research, 80% of the spinal damage will happen when you're born? Now, do you remember being born? It's probably unlikely, right? You're like, Dr. Jean-Guy, my life was perfect with no trauma. I'm like, you're just lying. Okay? You probably had hundreds of them. But then what happens is when there's trauma, when you have damage to your spine and nervous system and things starts breaking down, things don't function as well. When Victoria came to the office, she was 16 years old. She has headaches, which is not uncommon. We see lots of people with headaches. And she comes in with her parents, and her parents start telling me about her headaches. She didn't talk much. And after we evaluated her, And then we found that she had damage to her spine. The nervous system was right here, right here, right here, right in the upper neck area, that C1 and C2. Can you say C1 and C2? Then can you say atlas and axis? Right? Gary's like, yeah, I can do that. C1 and C2 one more time. Atlas and axis. Now, do you remember earlier I said this guy back in the 80s, Nobel Prize winner, found that 90% of your brain nutrition comes from proper motion of your joints. Do you remember that? Some of you wrote this down. Yes? Yes or yes? The answer was yes. And then also what happened is, do you know that the area of your body, the joints in your body that has the most information that feeds your brain, do you know which area that is? Of course, some of you might not know, and some of you, this young lady here, Jill, she's just way too smart, right? She just said it. She says it's your head. But the top two bone in your neck, this is the area where you have the most mechanoreceptors per square inch in your body that brings the most information to your brain to make your brain function, which I know tonight you're not going to go to bed and remember any of that, and that's okay. But what I want you to know, that if those two bones don't move properly in the top of your neck, your brain is never going to function at its maximum. So it's called C1 and C2. So then what happened to Victoria is after 4 weeks of care, she's receiving chiropractic care after we found out she had damage to her spine and nervous system where? C1 and C2, her nervous system, right? And we started adjusting her, and after 4 weeks, her mother comes in. She's like, Dr. Jean-Guy, thank you so much. Right? And she was crying at the time. She's got tears, and when people cry and I don't know why they're crying, kind of feel awkward. I think I'm in trouble. And she's like, I want to see you in the back, the room next door. That's not exactly how it happens, but we go to the back room after she said some of those words, and she says, listen, I just want you to know that when we came in with Victoria, I told you about the headaches, but I never told you that she was diagnosed with clinical depression. And every time that she came into the house, right, she would always go into her bedroom. She never talked to us. Now we're 4 weeks into this process, and when she comes in now for the first time since she's been diagnosed, now she comes in and talks to us. It's never happened. Think about that for a minute. This area here, anything that has to do with focus, concentration, right? Focus, concentration, mood. This is this area right now. This area here controls your immune system as well. This area here controls your digestive system, in case you did not know that. This area there that people have high blood pressure, they get adjusted right there and blood pressure comes down. Once in a while, people are like, I thought this neck cracking was just for my neck pain. I mean, it could, but maybe there's some side effect. Maybe they're called positive side effect, right? Because those little wires, they don't just go to muscles and ligament and tendon, but they also go to every organ, tissue, cells in your body. Yes? The answer is yes. When Kim came to the office close to 20 years ago now on a Saturday morning, it's 10 o'clock, she says, Dr. Jean-Guy, can you adjust me right here? And I'm like, who's the doctor here? Is that me or you? She's like, oh, I'm so sorry. I just moved in from Canada and been going to the chiropractor from the time I was a little girl. And I just moved into this town. And every time I have acid reflux, my chiropractor used to adjust me right here and the acid reflux would be gone. She understood already, right, that if your brain is not sending the right message at the right time before you eat and produce some digestive enzyme, your body's not going to be able to break down the food that is coming in. Does that make sense? Some of you, maybe you've never thought of that, but I'm just telling you right now, I'm bringing this to your radar because you just didn't know. You just did not know. We have the wife of a pastor that came in about 4 years ago, or maybe 5 years now. And when I did the exam with her, I said, listen, I want you to tell me what would be like, if we were to have some goals here to find out if what we're doing is helping you out, what would you like? Like, what's the number one thing in your life? She's like, Dr. Jean-Guy, I want to have babies. I'm like, I'm not sure that's what we do here. Babies. Right? I thought you just want somebody to crack your neck or something. But I want you to check this out here for a minute. Okay, now I'm gonna spoil it for you, but we're 4 years down now. She had 3 kids already, just so you know. But what happened is this area right here, this is called your neck, just so you know, right below your C1, C2, your neck. Those wires, they go to your thyroid gland. How many of you here would like to have more energy? Only one person, that's okay. The rest of you, you want more, you're just too tired, lift your hand up. Okay, that's fine. That's cool. You don't have to. I mean, I know it's late. So what happened is when this area here doesn't work properly, those wires that are going to your thyroid gland, they're not going to work right. You see what I'm saying? Now, I did not say to her, you're going to have babies in 5 years from now. I didn't know that. But it happened. So then after that, now listen. Then after that, you have people that exercise a lot and they just think they exercise a lot. We have a lot of UPS people coming to the office. And those UPS people, they really think they exercise a lot because they lift 500 boxes per day. And they do that all year round. But when you do something over and over again, what does that do to your spine and nervous system? You think it's going to cause a little bit of damage or a lot of damage over time? 10, 20, 30 years. No doubt about it. So sometimes we do things that are repetitive in nature, and what happens is it breaks down the body because you do it over and over again. That's important to understand. If you don't understand that, then you're just not going to know. People are like, well, Dr. Jean, I don't hurt. I'm like, well, that's good, right? We don't want you to hurt. We want you to be the best version of yourself you can, and your brain and nervous system controls and coordinate everything. So now watch. If this person here, they're eating some amazing organic food, it's amazing organic food, and then let's say that you have damage to your spine and nervous system and it's smashing the nerve going to your small and large intestine. Is your small and large intestine going to be able to assimilate all this great food that you're putting into your body? Yes or no? Thank you. What about if you go on this 5-mile run and you have damage to your spine and nervous system right here at the bottom of your neck and it's crushing the nerve going to your heart? What would happen to your heart when you go on that run? Would your heart have to work less or have to work harder? Yeah, it have to work harder. It's called congestive heart failure. See what I'm saying? Understood? So when you have damage to your spine and nervous system, sometimes, you want to eat well, you want to think well, you want to move well, but if things don't function properly, you cannot maximize from those other things you're doing for yourself. Does that make sense? I want this to make sense to you because this is important. This is important. That's the reason why, right, tonight I want to introduce you. Before I introduce you to our Wellness Breakthrough Evaluation, I always like to tell people that when it comes down to your health, you can do whatever you want. Right, I was walking around the table here tonight, and I didn't really introduce myself. I was just trying to learn your names. Every one of you. I usually try to put this in the vault, but there's too many of you. I could probably repeat 90%. But the objective is always the same, is to say, hey, listen, when it comes down to your health, you can do whatever you want. But just to pretend for a minute that whatever problems that you have, you don't do anything about it. You think it's going to get better or worse? Knowing that something could have been done. Something could have been done so you can get to your bucket list. What is your bucket list? Some of you here tonight might be like, hey, I just want to get on my knees and play with my grandkids. Some of you here might be like, hey, listen, when I have kids, I just want to be able to play with them. Some of you here, I just want to be like traveling with my spouse, and I don't feel like I can do that right now. Some of you might be like, hey, I just want to go see my kids play and sit on the bleachers, but I don't feel like I can do that because my health is not like that good. Some of you here might be like, I just come home at night and I'm so pooped out, I just don't want to do anything. You see what I'm saying? So this being said, right, we have this thing called the Wellness Breakthrough Evaluation, and that's what we do to find out where the foundation of a person is. Where is your health foundation? Where is the starting point? And how we can just move you forward from this moment. So our Wellness Breakthrough Evaluation, there's 3 main things that we do. Is we do this thing called a nerve scan. Now, a nerve scan, I want to tell you what that is because this is really important. Did you know? Now listen, I've already said it, but I'm going to repeat it. Did you know that there's 31 pairs of nerve coming out of your back? How many? Very good. I did not say that, but you guys got it. 31 pairs of nerve, yes? And now if you take one nerve and you blow it up, there's 9 little nerves. Only 2 out of the 9 tells your brain about pain. How many? 2 out of the 9. The other 7, they're in charge of your organ tissue cells. Yes or yes? The other 7 has to do with the organ tissue cells, has nothing to do with pain. So when we do a nerve scan, we want to find out if, right, those areas, aside from the pain, how are those areas functioning or not functioning right? Does that make sense? Number 2 is we do this thing called an advanced posture analysis. The reason why we do this is because some of you here intuitively, you know that, but many of you don't, is your posture is it's a window to your spine and nervous system. So when you have a bad posture and you're walking around like this, did you know that your chance of having heart disease goes up by 80%? Did you know that? And research supports that. I can show you the research. Right? Having a bad posture is horrible. It's horrible for your health. It's worse than having heart disease. So your posture is a window to your spine and nervous system, and then we can find out what's happening on the inside. And then last but not least is we do this advanced biomechanical digital x-rays. And the reason why we do that is when we do films of a person's spine, you can find out where there's damage. And you can find out how long it's been there for. Sometimes people say, well, really? You can tell? I'm like, yeah. You can find out how long it's been there for, how much damage you have, and what needs to be done to be corrected if it's still correctable. Do you follow me? Right? Once we do our wellness breakthrough evaluation, then we do this next visit. It's called the report of findings. And when we do the report of findings, we do this thing called I like to call it, it's called the doctor's report. At the doctor's report, I teach people how to read their x-rays. And then the reason why we do this is because we want to give people knowledge, understanding what's going on with them, because when people know more about their problem, they have the tendency to do what? Yeah, they do much better at getting results and getting better. Why would you be in the dark? People come in, they're like, Dr. Jean-Guy, I know I'm messed up, but I don't know I've been seeing 10 doctors and I don't know, they just told me I was messed up. Well, I wasn't there for 10 minutes, but I don't really know what's going on those blood tests. Can you tell me about it? Right? So you want to know. The more you know about you, the better you'll be. Because ultimately, who's responsible for your health? You are, right? You are. That's the reason we want you to know, because this is important. Right? So it's called the doctor's report. So let's pretend for a moment you go to the hospital tonight. You're not going to go, but let's pretend. I'm not speaking that over you. Right? You go to the hospital tonight. They take a full set of x-rays, your entire spine. How much you think they charge you for that? Let's pretend you don't have any insurance, and just before you walk out the door, they're not going to let you out until you pay them. How much you think they charge you for it? Harry says $2,800. Dr. Jean-Guy wants to be an x-ray tech right now, and I want to be paid that. I'm just kidding, right? That's a lot of money. And I tell people all the time, I'm like, listen, if it was warranted, if it was necessary, would that be okay? Likely. So when a person comes to the office, we do a wellness breakthrough evaluation. We charge people $320. We're really in the midst of this big picture of what you're going to get, the information that you're going to get out of it, and the education you'll get out of it. Right? It's really nothing. It's like spitting in a bucket. Think about that. But for some reason, I believe that if you're here tonight, you're sitting in your seat. Some of you, you've been there, you've had this before, and I'm not talking to you if it's you. But if you've never had one and you're like, hey, listen, this is time for me to do something for my health. When you sign up for your appointment tonight for the Wellness Breakthrough Evaluation, we're going to charge you $69 to do that. And I want to tell you why, because this is important. That's the most important part. September 14, 1982. When my father left that day, I was 9 years old. And my brother was 8 years old. My other brother was 7. My sisters were, early teenage years. My mother was 35 years old. And when my dad left on the stretcher that day, guess what? Never saw my dad again. My father had a heart attack on his way to the hospital. And he left behind him 5 kids with my mom. And if my father would have been sitting right here tonight, right, 10 years prior to him dying, the chances are he would have seen me getting married. The chances are he would have seen his grandkids playing sports. The chances are, right, that he would have been able to enjoy his life with his wife, which is my mom. But that never happened. That never happened because nobody has ever taken the time, right, to truly tell him really what health was all about. Does that make sense? That's the reason why this health paradigm is so important for each and every one of you. Doesn't matter who you are, doesn't matter which journey you're on. But if you truly want to be healthy, you have to be changing lane if you're not already in that lane. And you need to be asking some better questions, and you need to get better answer for you to continue to move forward. Because I'm going to tell you right now tonight that God wants you to be healthy. He does. But there's some laws, and when you break the laws, it's never going to happen. You see what I'm saying? That's important. You have to know. If you're in the dark, If you don't have the right information and you ask the wrong question, you make bad decision after bad decision, it only leads one way. It's called medical wreckage. And there's a lot of that today. Right? And that's what I don't want for people. That's what I've been doing, what I do for the past 25 years. So this being said, just to circle back right here in the middle of the table, when you schedule your appointment tonight, this is how you're going to do it. In 2024, you just scan a QR code. How's that sound? All right, you take your phone. It's right there in the middle of the table. Every one of you here, it's face down, middle table. Grab this here. Show it to me. Every one of you here, grab it. Just don't fight. There's only one person that can grab it. Come on, let's do that quickly. Middle of the table, just grab that. Right where the water is, so just grab that. Wave this. This is like, okay, Dr. Jean-Guy, got it. Right? When you schedule your appointment, I just want to tell you how it is because people always ask me, they're like, Dr. Jean-Guy, how do you do that? Well, you're going to scan the QR code. And then after that, you're going to pick the office. We have 2 offices. This is one of them right here, Gilead Healing Center. We also have another office in Frandor. So you pick the office first. Second is you put your information in there, your information, or your family members, because you can sign up for your family members too for the $69 tonight. And then after that, it's going to take you to another, you're going to go to the next step. The next step is you're going to schedule your appointment. And then last, once you schedule your appointment, then you're going to go to the payment portion of it. Understood? It's going to tell you step by step. You don't have to worry about anything. And then Gabrielle is going to come around the table. And if you're like, Dr. Jean-Guy, I'm clueless about those QR codes. I don't know how to operate that. No problem. We got a solution for you. Understood? Right? $69. This is for it doesn't matter if it's for you, other members of the family. This is for tonight only. Either at this office or the other office. If you have a favorite, right, you can either see Dr. Denise here, also known as my wife. She's the boss, right? This is Dr. Denise. She was walking around and hopefully schmoozing some of you. Hopefully not, I want you to come see me. I'm just kidding. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. I married into a family of 32 chiropractors. There's only one lost sheep in the family. She's a surgeon. We don't talk to her. I'm just kidding. We do. And that is a true story. Okay? No questions about this? Food is coming. Yes, Jill, go ahead. Oh, yes. Yeah, no problem. Yes. If you have questions, right, after you get your food, I'm gonna be here for a few minutes and I'll be answering your question. There's a few things that I don't really want you to ask me, and I'm gonna tell you why, just so you understand. I'm not an expert. If, like some of you are concerned, you want to ask me about insurance, just so I covered that right now. Most, we accept all insurance that has coverage for what we do. Sometimes today in healthcare or sick care, they don't always cover everything that we do, just so you know. But you'll be told ahead of time. Okay, is that fair? Right? This initial investment here, $69, you'll have everything done up to the report. Won't cost you one more penny. Understood? That's number one. Number two, do not ask me questions that are personal to you. Number one is the reason why I don't want to have something personal to you is I don't want to be violating HIPAA laws, number one. If it's something general about health, I'm going to answer any question that you have. But if it's specific to you, this discussion should be me and you or, one of the other doctors. Does that sound fair? Right? And sometimes, too, when people go deep into a rabbit hole of it's something very specific for them, it's got to be like I say to people, well, it depends, and people don't like it. They're like, well, you just don't want to answer my question. I'm like, I do. But if I don't have the whole movie, I cannot tell you. I need the whole movie. Does that make sense? Just to be fair, right? So I'm going to give you this. Before I pray for your food, this is my favorite, all-time favorite that's going to drive this point home for you. There was this family of 4, husband and wife and 2 kids. And every time that there's a birthday, every year, they just go to the restaurant and then they have this nice meal. And after the meal, the person who has their birthday, they're going to write down all their wishes, right? So if you're 18 years old, you're going to write down 18 wishes. And at the end of the meal and after they have all this celebration, they just share their wishes, right? They just pull out a piece of paper and they share every one of them. So one year, the husband is turning 49 years old and he's got this piece of paper. He has 49 wishes. By the time they're done celebrating, they're having this nice meal. And then they just eat their dessert. He pulls out the piece of paper and it starts sharing all of his wishes, right? Some of them would be like, hey, this year I want to travel, me and my family. We want to go to Europe. This year, I'd like to finish my book and publish my book. This year, I would like to see my son, my oldest son, getting married. So he's got 49 of those. The following year, unbeknown to him, his wife says, listen, I'm going to make this big. Next year is going to be 50 years old. Right? And they have this ritual that every year, that's what they do. So she started preparing this thing, months ahead. And she invites all of his friends. There are about hundreds of them. And by the time it's his birthday, he knows that they're going to go to the restaurant. He already knows that. And by the time they show up at the restaurant, as soon as they show up, unbeknown to him, right, there's 100 people there in that room, and they're like, ta-da! All of his friends, they're all there. So they have this nice meal just like they've always done it. They just fellowship together. They have dessert together. And by the time it's all said and done, here's what happened. He pulls out of his pocket this little card. It's a 3.5 by 5 cards, right? He pulls it out and he reads right off of the card and he says, his only one wish, he says, this year I want to get my health back. You see, prior to that, 3 weeks prior, he had been diagnosed with cancer. They gave him 90 days to live. When people have their health, they have many wishes. But when you don't have your health, you only have one. You just want to have your health back. And this is what I pray over each and every one of you here tonight. Right? It's not only to have your health back, but to be the best version of yourself that you can be, so you can fulfill the calling that God's put on your heart, whatever that might be for you. Do you follow me? So thank you for being here tonight. I'm going to pray for the food. I'm going to pray for you. And then I'm going to tell you how we're going to make this happen. Usually Dr. Denise, she's right there. She's going to tell us what needs to be done. Fair enough? Father, we just want to say thank you for, number one, this amazing group of people that we have here tonight. I just pray that those seeds that were deposited in their mind and heart, that if they are from you, that they will grow. And I pray, Lord, that you put on everyone here in this room tonight the desire that you have for their life and for their health and the calling that you have on their life. And as a result of that, to give them some specific strategy, right, to take action to make this happen. We just want to say thank you for the people that have made the food tonight. We're just grateful for it. We just pray, Lord, that you just bless this food that is about to nourish your body. In Jesus' name. Okay, Dr. Denise, who do you want first? Front 2 tables right here. You're going to follow Dr. Denise here through that door, and then we're going to make a circle. And then we're going to go through that middle part. Let's do that. Jill, there's a piece of paper that just went on the ground there. Okay, now just so you know, there's going to be bread. I'm watching. This is a test, right? As you're coming in, I'm watching. That's a test. I'm just teasing. There is bread. I mean, I am watching just a little bit, right? So now, while you're waiting for a minute and you're signing up for your appointment, if you have questions, health questions, I'm willing to answer those. Otherwise, I'm just going to go home. Mary's going to ask the first question. Did you guys know that we have Mary and Mary right here in the front row? What are the chances? You got two Mary, they're sitting next to each other. Mary has a question. Go ahead, I'm ready. How do you do the nerve scan? That's pretty personal. So the nerve scan is an instrument, right? Are you familiar with thermography? A little bit. Is it like a Zytoscan? No, a Zytoscan is a complete different type of testing. A nerve scan will test the top 3 millimeters of heat coming out from the skin, which is a representation of your autonomic nervous system. This is your autonomic nervous system, right? This is the system that is in charge of controlling and regulating every organ, tissue, cells in your body, which has nothing to do with pain. You follow me? So when we do a nerve scan, it's different than a Zytoscan. We used to have Zyto in our office, so I'm familiar, but it's testing something different. Good question.
So how deep does it go? Like if there's issues between T10 and T12.
Yes.
And the nerves, what will it tell you on the scans?
Yeah, so the scan will give you different colors, and the colors will tell you the amount of interference there is in the nervous system in those areas. So the colder it is, when something becomes cold in the body, that means that there's a chronic illness that is cooking, right? So that's how their nerve scan works.
So how do you correct, besides the adjustment, how do you correct when the nerves are not communicating with?
Great question. Jill is like, I like that. So when the nerves don't communicate properly, right? So if your spine, if there is nerve interference in your nervous system, there could be multiple reasons for that. Number one is you could have a structural problem, you could have an emotional problem, or you could have a chemical problem. Understood? So a physical, an adjustment can fix that. Exercise can support the adjustment. Doing traction can support the adjustment, right? So there's different things that can be done physically to the body to correct that. But you could also have a chemical subluxation, meaning that if a person is eating a lot of sugar, and I'm going to give you an example like at T6, right? T6 is a nerve that is going to your pancreas. If a person eats sugar, I guarantee you I'm going to go push on that bone and you're going to scream. I was about to say like a little girl, but you're not a little girl anymore. So, and it's going to happen. You just come right off the table. And it's going to happen 100% of the time because it's connected, right? Those nerves that are there, what happened is when people eat a lot of sugar, they start having low-grade inflammation in their body. And then what happened is they're going to be inflamed, and those areas that are feeding into that organ is going to be mad. And it's trying to send information back to the brain to relate to the brain what's happening. You know, I've been doing this for 25 years. Nobody's ever asked you that question. Mary's a smart one. Okay, the first two table here. Do you have any questions for Dr. Jean-Guy? No questions?
Yeah, I do actually.
Oh, this young lady has questions.
The nerve
Yes.
test?
Yes.
How does that work? I'm intrigued. Like, what do you guys use?
Are you familiar with a thermography?
Yeah, they
with the-
use that for instead of mammograms, right?
Yes. You can use that for the nervous system.
Oh, interesting.
Yes,
Cool. Thank you.
you bet. Yes.
Yeah, so this is about the nervous system, right? So would it show?
Tell me everything you want. Ask me anything.
Correct that it would show whether or not my doctor was right in prescribing me medication for neuropathic pain?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
So I'm not supposed to answer those questions, but I will, just because you ask, Emily. So if a person has neuropathic pain, there's two different problems when a person has neuropathy, right? One problem is nerves, and then the other problem is blood flow, microcirculation. So potentially, depending of how advanced the problem is, right? Some of those things might show and some of those things might not show. Do you follow me? So a person in medicine, we don't really have any tests to look at microcirculation. And when people have neuropathy, there's a lot of checking the boxes of other things to make sure that those other things are not the problem. When a person has what they call neuropathy pain, I've seen people being told they have neuropathy pain, and it's because they have what we call the subluxation, meaning if those bones are not where they need to be and they're putting pressure on the nerve, we call that a subluxation, right? If you have a subluxation can present as what people would say you have neuropathic pain, but it might not be necessarily that. We see a lot of people at the office with neuropathy, and I would say that half of the people that come in that think they have neuropathy, they don't. What? It's a mystery. I can't tell you. It's a secret. It's only our secret. So a person that has true neuropathy, they're going to have damage with the nerves. The nerves are being damaged. The myelin of the nerves is being damaged. And people will have microcirculation problem as well. There's a circulation problem and a nerve problem. But a person you could have a subluxation in your lower back, and it can give you symptoms of neuropathy. meaning that if those bones are out of alignment, putting pressure on the nerve, it will give you symptoms of neuropathy. A person could be told that they have neuropathy, and the doctor will give them gabapentin or Lyrica, and they'll be like, we'll give you that for nerve pain or for you to sleep better. Okay, you follow me? That's usually the protocol. That's the algorithm that they're going to give people. We're just going to kill you softly because they really don't have an answer for it. And then a person could have issues with having problems with vitamin B12, because B12 this is what the nerves needs in order to function properly. So if you go on that little chart, which I skipped that, but if you go on this chart, which is a very handy chart, it will show you where those nerves are coming from, and it will tell you where they go and what kind of symptoms potentially a person could have. If your nervous system doesn't function properly, then any of those symptoms could happen to a person. Make sense? Yeah. Do you have a questions? I'm ready for you. Go ahead. You were so patient. I'm ready. Oh yeah, herniated disc. Yes, we see a lot of those. The vast majority of them, after we do the evaluation, we can help. A few of them might need to have surgery, but it's rare. But we see a lot of people with a herniated disc. Yeah. Yes. Yes. My experience with sleeping is either this year or sometime this year. The reason for that is because the top and bottom is in charge of this thing called your parasympathetic nervous system. And your parasympathetic nervous system, it's called your feed or breathe system, meaning it's in charge of your rest and heal system. So if your parasympathetic doesn't function properly, it can affect sleep because there's always tension on the nervous system. This is a common thing that after people's nervous system is functioning better, people will sleep better. That's a common side effect. To get your wellness breakthrough evaluation, and then we're going to find out to see if you need to be fine-tuned. Yes? Okay, go ahead, dear. Kathleen, right? Yes. Um, the answer is yes. This area, Kathleen, is in charge of your sympathetic nervous system, which is your fight or flight. So, yes, if a person has spinal damage in some of those areas, this can increase, right? This can have a negative impact on the sympathetic nervous system. And this can go both ways, right? What does that mean? You can give a chiropractic adjustment to a person that has high blood pressure right here and their blood pressure goes down. And the reason for that is because you have an effect on the parasympathetic, which is the counterpart of your sympathetic. Yes? Your fight or flight is your sympathetic, and then your parasympathetic, they balance each other out. So any one of those that are out of order will have an effect on those things.
On the topic of sleep,
Yes, Jill?
you probably get real specific about pillow use for heads and
Yes. Jill's question is, what kind of pillow should you have? You should have a pillow that you have good posture on. So if you're sleeping on your back, your head needs to be on top of your shoulders. Not like that. Like that. If you sleep on your side, your head should be straight. You shouldn't be like this or like that. Most pillows, even the contour pillow, they're crap. I'm sorry, I just burst your bubble. You're like, I just spent $150 on that pillow. The reason why they're crap is because they're just too big for most people. And then by the time you lay on them, your head's like that. So that's counterproductive, makes you worse. If you want to have your head needs to be on top of your shoulders. Yes? Okay. Yes, I'm ready. When we do the wellness breakthrough evaluation, we do three things. We do a nerve scan, we do an advanced posture analysis, and then we do some x-rays. Yeah. To assess the spine and nervous system. So we're going to be taking a full set of x-rays of your spine. We're going to do an advanced postural analysis, and then we're going to do a nerve scan. And then there's other neurological stuff that we do chiropractically as well. The nerve scan tells you about how the autonomic nervous system is functioning. Yes. I'm ready. Gloria, go for it. I'm sorry, I didn't want to scare you.
Okay. Does this address arthritis? I think you said something about arthritis.
Yes.
Okay.
People don't really have arthritis, but that's a different subject. But your doctor told you about that. You have arthritis. Of course, everybody has arthritis. You're 25 years old and you have arthritis. If you're hurting, you have arthritis. Everybody does. Okay. Is it Emily? I don't see the name. Oh. Amy? Angela. Angela. Okay, my eyes were just crossed. Angela, go. I'm ready now when your mouth is empty.
Okay, so some of us have really good insurance.
Yeah.
And we set this up, and the insurance will pay for it. It's not a problem. You know what I'm saying? Well, will
Yeah.
the insurance pay for it, the major ones like Booster Network?
We usually do courtesy checks, so we don't know until we do the check. But I can tell you, just a side note about the insurance, and we're not going to go real far on that, right? I just want to give you a side note. Insurance company have a very, very specific guideline for taking care of people. And the guideline is based on medical necessity. And you can go look this up on Dr. Google. It's called section 2251.3 of the Medicare guideline. Not that I know it by heart, but it's called section 2251.3 of the Medicare guideline. And basically it says, I'm going to paraphrase for you. If you do anything to help a person to be healthier, or to manage their chronic condition, or to help them to be in better health, it's not considered to be medically necessary. Okay, so what that means is, in plain English, just so for all of you here to understand, is who's responsible for your health? You are. Do you think your insurance company cares about you? Okay, thank you. Sometimes you think they do, and people will plainly lie to you on the phone, and they've done that many times, and they will continue to do that. And I want you to know that. Right? Most people don't know that. And I'm not saying that whether the insurance company pays for something or not, and that's great if they do. I just want you to know that many times over the past, especially 5 to 7 years, a lot of the rules and regulation have changed. And the reason for that is because, in case you want to know, maybe you don't want to know, but I'm going to tell you anyway. There's more sick people. It's costing them more money. So we're narrowing, making it harder, right, for reimbursement of any sorts, because more people are sick than ever before. And it's not going to change. It's only going to get worse, just so you know. Right? So your best bet is to do what? Is to take care of yourself. That's your best bet for you and your family. Right? That's what we want. You want to be taking care of yourself. Just a little bit of an ounce of prevention, is going to take you far when you understand what needs to be done. Right? And all of us need to be in the same boat and just steering in the same direction, because it's going to help every one of us. There's always one in the crowd here, and I'm going to leave after that. But there's always one in the crowd that you might be thinking tonight, you're like, Dr. Jean-Guy, I'm just going to die anyway. Who cares? Right? I mean, what's the point? And here's what I want to say to you. It's not a one-liner, but I want to tell you. What I want to say to you is, while you're here, don't you want to be the best version of yourself that you can? What would that be like if you end up at the nursing home, right? The last 10 years of your life at Bircham Hills, and you're in a wheelchair drooling all over yourself and not knowing who's in front of you? Yes, you will die, for sure. But 10 years of being in a wheelchair, drooling all over yourself. Who wants to sign up for that program? Nobody. Whether you're 50 years old, 60 years old, 100 years old, right? We all know God's got a plan for us. If you believe that, I do believe that. However, while you're here, don't you want to be the best version of yourself you can? Yeah. Right? Sign me up for that. I want to be the best. I want to be running the race as fast as I can until the end. Yes? Now, if you don't want that, that's okay. I'm just telling you that. Just think about that for a minute. Right? Dragging yourself around in a wheelchair or with crutches and you can't do anything, can't fulfill your calling. What is that good for? It's not good for anything. Okay, so now I'm leaving so you can have your bread. I'm not watching anymore. And if you have some more questions, Gabrielle, she's standing right there. This is Gabrielle. She's going to help you out with the QR code. If you don't know how to operate those, she'll answer all of your questions. She's going to walk around, just finish eating, eat your bread. Just kidding. I mean, eat your bread. You can have it. It's okay. Right? You guys were amazing. Gary, you got a gold star for that. Yeah, here we go. See, Gary's a smart man. Thank you for being here tonight.